It demonstrates a very characteristic problem that plasmas have. Hello and welcome to My Man the Maker. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about this Samsung plasma display that I rescued from the side of the road about 2 weeks ago, I guess. And it's performed okay, but it has started to exhibit this problem. And I thought that I would try to talk about this problem a little bit and also maybe go about some ways of troubleshooting it. So as you can see, this plasma has a bottom of the screen that's not functioning right. It seems to be flickering in and out of view. So what do we have here? Well, first of all, I should tell you that I've got this display hooked up to a little tiny computer called Guinness that I recently bought. Guinness is going to be my home entertainment server. It's got a surround sound output, HDMI, all kinds of goodies. I just installed Guinness today, and so far so good. And this is the one of the troubleshooting screens for Guinness. So what we're seeing is Guinness driving the Samsung Plasma at 720p, which is its native resolution. So we don't have to worry too much about the TV being over or under driven by the computer. The computer detected the panel and gave it the right signal. What's interesting is that this seems to be an intermittent problem. As you can see, it's not that the screen is black, it's that it's not right, and it's kind of popping in and out, which is the sign of either, well, it's one of two things, generally speaking. It's either a failed component that's just flickering in and out of service, or I think more likely, it's a loose connection. So I think what's going on is that inside this inside this plasma screen, one of the boards either has a dirty connector or a connector that's worked loose because the plasma is quite hot. So it gets hot and cools off, and it gets hot and cools off, and one of the connectors has maybe come loose. Now, what this means is that I have to take the plasma apart, which is not something I'm particularly afraid of. I've already taken the 4K LCD apart, and just reseating all of the connectors and seeing if that solves the problem. Now, the reason why I'm thinking this is because if I tap on the top of the TV, it changes. Now that's not usually the sign of a failing component. That's the sign of a loose connection. So there's definitely a connector problem, most likely with one of the boards to the panel. But the question is let's see if I can tap it to get the screen back. There we go. 3 more taps, 4 more taps, and we've got kind of like a grayed out version of the screen. And let's see if I tap it again. Right, I'm just kind of tapping it here, but the connector may be down here or up here. I just want to hit it on the bottom because it's actually not hung. It's just leaning against the wall, and I don't want to knock it over. It's really heavy. It's like 100 pounds. So I'm just going to give it a few more taps. There we go. One more tap. And now we've got a full screen. So that says to me that this Samsung Plasma has a bad connector. Or the other thing it could be is that the HDMI connector on the back has a poor solder connection. Either way, it's looking mechanical. It's not looking electrical. The way to troubleshoot whether or not it's the HDMI connector is to connect the VGA connector to the computer, which you can do quite easily. See, it's kind of just gone to gray now. And that would categorically narrow the problem down to the connector, which I may do. I don't have a VGA cable, but I can probably get one in the neighborhood somewhere just for a quick troubleshooting. But that's what's going on with this Samsung Plasma, is it's going from flawless screen to this grayed out bit to a completely scrambled screen spontaneously. The other thing that's kind of interesting is when you plug in a new source, it re-scrambles. See, it's just spontaneously doing this. I'm not doing anything to make that screen behave in one way or another. So when it's a bit gray, I can read it and use the computer and the screen, but when it's like this, I can't. So I just give it a few taps, and hopefully the neighbors won't start banging on the walls, and it will come back. So that's the sort of first blush troubleshooting of this panel, is that it seems to have a bad physical connection or solder connection inside, and as things heat up from the panel being in use, things move around. So it's looking like a bit of disassembly of this panel is going to be in the future. So we're going to have a look at the guts of plasma real soon, because I'd like my primary entertainment display not to do this, especially in the middle of a film or watching something. So there we are. I just thought I'd clue you into what is this problem and my particular source of the problem. Now, it could be a bad cable. Most likely it's a bad connector, like the cable is worked out or got dirty somewhere. So it's either where the cable enters the board or where the cable connector enters the board in question. So the next thing to figure out is which board are we talking about. But I think it's probably just a good idea to take the back off this thing, take every cable out, use a solvent to clean it, and then reseat it, put the TV back together, and then see what results we get from just doing something as simple as that. So that's what we're probably going to be doing next. Now it demonstrates a very characteristic problem that plasmas have, and that problem is that the lower part of the screen goes black, and that is a symptom of something called a bad buffer board connection. And you can see here there are buffer boards on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take the back off of this TV. I should tell you, of course, obligatory warning is that these TVs contain components that retain a charge even after the television is off, like those can-shaped components that are called capacitors, and they can store a very nasty charge, sometimes lethal, for a long time. So please be very careful if you're attempting to replicate this repair. What I plan to do is I plan to take off the cover. And the cover is held in by these Phillips head screws. There are a bunch of them, and I'm going to take them all out. And then there's also these big honking wall mount screws. I'm going to take those off too, just to see what, I think just out of an abundance of caution. And then I'm going to have a look-see at what's inside this thing. So there are these retaining screws all around the perimeter. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think it's 12, 13, and then we've got 1, 2, 3 along here. 4, 5, 6. So it looks like there's maybe 18 screws, and 4 big honking clip things. So that's quite a lot of screws. So 6 and 12 was 18, 22 screws. So I will see you after I have removed those 22 screws from the back of this TV. And I might fire up the other camera to sort of document the opening, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to start, here with this screw and work my way around. The only thing that I'm a bit concerned about is whether or not the screws are a different length. So I'll be putting them in a container and seeing what happens. So I'll see you on the other side, and then we will have a look-see at what's inside this thing and have a discussion about which board is likely the culprit of the black lower screen. See you after I've removed the screws.
I hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, giving me a like, and leaving me a comment. I really enjoy making these videos, and I want to know from you how I can make them better. The whole point of these videos is to demonstrate that if I can do something, you can do it too. Well, that's it for now. So long, and remember, keep making.